Hello, and welcome back again to another episode of Best Friends Dissimilar Interests, a show where two friends show each other shit that they've never seen to try to get to know each other a little more, even after 15 years. My name's Tiberi.
And I'm just a little old tree spirit, but you can call me Matt.
I love the damn tree spirits, but the reason Matt's talking about tree spirits is because this week we have watched the movie Princess Mononoke, a Studio Ghibli film. Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, this is your first Studio Ghibli experience.
Yeah, I know very little. I'd heard of Studio Ghibli, but I know very little about it.
So, are you familiar with any of their other works, or is this the only one you know about?
I've just kind of through osmosis, I've seen a lot of the titles, and I've seen some art from the other ones. I know like Howl's Moving Castle.
Yep.
There's this one about like a fancy cat man that
Oh, yeah.
he looks like he's like, I'm a gentleman, a scholar, and a cat. Um,
Yeah.
what are some of the other ones? Spirited
So you got
Away, right?
Spirited Away, exactly right. So, and that's something too. So the thing about Studio Ghibli that's really interesting is they cover a lot of things here. So, for those who don't know the story about Princess Mononoke, the basic premise of it here is that there's a young man by the name of Ashitaka. He actually ends up being cursed by a demon, and as part of his quest to get himself cured and to save his own life, he ventures off to the west into this kind of mythical forest and has a really interesting experience with the characters surrounding that forest and the people in the towns nearby. And it's a really interesting narrative kind of about environmentalism. Now, Studio Ghibli also does stuff, like you said, not like Spirited Away, where it's a young girl's kind of coming of age until her teenage years, where she kind of goes into this adventurous, unique, kind of a whimsical world with friendship and, kind of growing up and growing older. The same could be said with Kiki's Delivery Service, a story about a young witch who, again, as she gets older, is kind of understanding a better way to kind of go about life and to experience kind of more human interactions and kind of next steps as you get closer to adulthood. And Ghibli does this really great thing where they just kind of capture very human elements in a lot of these really whimsical stories. You know what I mean? And I will say, so Princess Mononoke, this film is really much darker than stuff like Spirited Away or Howl's Moving Castle or Kiki's Delivery Service or My Neighbor Totoro. All of those movies are very fun, whimsy, and they're not excessively dark. Princess Mononoke can get pretty dark pretty fast, as you saw.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna ask if they were, because I was under the impression that they were all kind of very kid friendly, and I'm not even saying that I wouldn't show this to a kid, but I also think that like growing up, my dad was just like, watch whatever the fuck you want. So I very vividly remember being a small child watching Predator and just being like, rad, righteous, this is great. And so like I just, I wouldn't be that afraid to show some stuff to kids, and like maybe I'm wrong for that. But what I'm getting at is, I've heard people call it like the Disney of Japan and stuff like that. So I was a
Sure.
little surprised with some of the violence and how graphic it was.
Oh yeah, and that's kind of the weird thing about their kind of catalog at Ghibli is that you have, like I said, some really wholesome things like I just mentioned. But then you got stuff like this. You have stuff like Grave of the Fireflies. That is harrowing. You've got stuff in The Wind Rises, which is about the development of Japanese fighter planes. And you've got stuff in Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. That's a whole other movie. It's not quite as dark as the other three we just mentioned, but it deals with some pretty heavy topics. And there's a couple images especially that as a kid I would just be like, oh fuck, that fucked me up a little bit. Like you said, I don't think it's necessarily wrong for kids to see those movies, but it definitely, I think they are rated PG-13 if that gives you any kind of frame of reference. So
Yeah,
it's
for
like
sure.
everything else is rated G pretty much. But yeah, I think that's a common kind of conception is it's all kids movies. And like, yeah, I think most kids would enjoy all of the movies, but I think most people who are adults who are into Ghibli can still enjoy them as adults. Like it kind of has a nice age range on it. But yeah, this movie you watch is Probably one of the most violent, if not the most violent from what I've seen.
Yeah, there was, like I said, I was a little taken aback. I just wasn't expecting it. There was the first, and we'll get into it, but the first, like, really kind of thing that I was like, damn, I didn't know that was going to happen, was he shoots an arrow and it takes off both the arms of a samurai. And
Yep.
I literally just went, God damn, when that happened. So.
Okay, but yeah. So I guess before we get into the movie proper, I'll give you a little bit of background on the Studio Ghibli kind of history. Very short overview of its director. Does that sound okay to you?
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
Awesome. So Studio Ghibli was founded in 1985 by Hayao Miyazaki, who is the director of a lot of these movies, Toshio Suzuki and Isao Takahata. Apologies if I'm pronouncing your name wrong there, sir, or madam. So back then in the 80s, they really started to kind of put out more and more of their movies. They had quite a long, I mean, they've been doing this productions, gosh, for the past, I guess, 30 or 40 years now. And like I said, it varies quite rapidly on content and themes and imagery. But some of the things they've always been kind of highly praised for are their animation quality, and their actual background. So now that you've seen this movie, Matt, you will probably understand. Like if you look at another movie, if you look at the face of any character, you'll be like, that's a Ghibli movie. Like for sure, I know that's a Ghibli movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and that's one thing that I think I've talked about in this podcast is where I don't know anime really. A lot of the characters where they kind of share a style. I could see, a character and be like, I have no clue. Even if it's from a popular one, I'd be like, I have no clue what show they are from. But yeah, I thought this one was definitely just a little bit more stylistic in that way, I guess. Like, it felt a little bit more, I don't want to say unique, because I don't think the other ones aren't unique, but this one felt like, oh, I could identify this.
I think it's fair to say that, like, if you compare this to stuff like, I don't know, like Naruto or Demon Slayer or any kind of shonen that's out there, like modern stuff, yeah, there's a lot more hand-drawn features in the Ghibli stuff, a lot more kind of really kind of fine art almost approach to it, you know what I mean? As opposed to maybe a little bit more kind of efficiency on the side of current modern shonen, which isn't a bad thing. You can still utilize that to its current, to current standards to make great art out of it. But I know what you mean when you say I think that's completely fair praise or fair observation. So actually, in the name itself, do you have any idea why it's called Studio Ghibli?
No, I know that I guess the mascot that's used that I've seen is the Totoro or whatever.
Yeah.
Does it have anything to do with that?
No. From what I've understood, actually, so Studio Ghibli, Ghibli is actually a word of Italian origin. And I believe it's actually, well, I think people think it's an Italian origin linked to Arabic etymology. So apparently, Hayao Miyazaki, who's the main director of these, is an avid lover of aviation and airplanes. He loves aircraft. He loves drawing aircraft and airplanes. Most movies will have some kind of flying object or vehicle in them of some crazy design. And it's really cool to look at. This is one of the few that doesn't. But apparently there was a certain model of Italian plane, which nickname was actually called the Ghibli. And apparently the word Ghibli was the Arabic word for like a warm desert wind. So I guess that kind of vibe just kind of worked with him. People kind of assumed that one model of plane may have been his favorite. And so they all kind of links together with his background to maybe be the name for the whole studio, which is kind of weird when you think about it, but it works, I guess. People recognize the name,
Yeah, yeah. I do love that about men of a certain age where they just love machines. Like there's those guys who are really into trains. And
planes, trains, and what is it?
yeah, there was on the interstate, or well, like it wasn't the interstate, it was the highway. They were building this big on ramp, one of the like 4-leaf clover looking ones. So there were all these big machines pushing around dirt and shit. And whenever you would drive by it, there was just these 3 old men sitting in their lawn chairs watching the machines. And I was like, damn, I wish I could understand that joy of just being like, oh fuck yeah, the steam shovel.
God damn it.
But yeah, so I love that he's just like, it's rad planes.
And there's some really cool he's got some great designs in other movies. I'll say like the ones in Howl's Moving Castle, fucking stellar. Like that shit's pretty cool. And we'll probably touch that eventually here on this show. But that's for another time. We got some time to get back to this, so do some more Ghibli stuff. But yeah, so really they're really well known for their animation and their art. Their soundtracks, their score, of course, also are exceptional. But yeah, so without any further ado, I think that's really all I had from the side of Studio Ghibli stuff. I think we talked about this independently as well, but this was released in 1997, and at the time had a pretty strong environmentalist outlook, environmentalist message, and we can get more into that here, of course, because it's a pretty heavy theme in the movie. But did you have any questions as far as, basic history of Studio Ghibli, or just kind of other kind of media surrounding this, other kind of anime tropes or ideas?
No, I definitely picked up on some, what I'm assuming are shonen tropes that, I just thought it was kind of interesting how it was interacting with this movie. Is Miyazaki still alive?
I do believe so.
Oh, okay.
Yes, actually, I think he had directed the most recent movie, The Boy and the Heron.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right, because I remember when that came out. I haven't seen it or anything, but I remember when that came out, people were like, it's really good, but it's not as good as some of Miyazaki's other stuff. So, yeah, that sounds right.
Sure. Yeah. Frankly, I haven't seen it, so maybe we can watch that one together and have a joint feedback on that. That'd be interesting.
Yeah,
so.
That could be fun. But no, I think I'm ready to dive into it. I was gonna play a game where I wanted to guess what year it came out, and I was gonna say late '90s, early 2000s, just based on the voice cast. So
yeah.
But I did see 97 before we could do that, so I was like, dang, I was spot on though.
Which that's actually a great note before we get started. So I have seen both the dub and the sub, so I have an opinion on this. I do prefer the dub, and that's probably just because I'm a dumb American in my English brain. It's easier for me to see the screen, to hear it in English as opposed to, read subtitles. I thought the dub was pretty competent. You do have a wonderful appearance by Billy Bob Thornton in this, so that was a fun time.
I thought it grew on me, but when I saw that guy and Billy Bob Thornton's voice came out of it, I was like, that just doesn't fit. There was a lot of the other ones I thought did a great job, like specifically Keith David. I thought was such a good choice for that character, and I love Keith David, but yeah, when he was just inexplicably Billy Bob Thornton, and I was like, what, I don't think that one quite fits, but it did grow on me as I kind of got to know the character more. I was like, what, this is a Billy Bob Thornton little son bitch, so.
Yeah, he's a little slime ball.
Yeah,
little slimy Billy Bob.
Yeah, I was about to say that's classic. That's classic Billy Bob Thornton right there.
All right, man. Well, without further ado, I guess I'll hand you the reins, and you can go ahead. We'll walk through this and kind of just talk about the movie as things come up, and we'll just have a discussion.
Yeah, you're definitely going to have to help me weave through this narrative a little bit, but it opens up. And so I think one thing it establishes very early on is it is obviously a story about the land, but the land, even though it's, animated, it's, hand drawn and all this stuff, the land feels, so real and such a big part of the story in the same way that, New Zealand, it feels in Lord of the Rings and how it takes you to Middle Earth. Like, that's how I felt about all these beautiful landscapes that were drawn, and it opens with that, this like misty landscape, and then Keith David is just like, he's like, in the land of gods and monsters, and I'm like fuck yeah, Keith David's already here.
Man, like you said, excellent casting decision on that. I really think they killed it on that.
Yeah, Keith David he has a very special place in my heart. He's in so much shit that I just love. But yeah, so I thought that was a very cool little intro. And I did think it was because I did go in thinking that this was more of a kids movie. So I was interested. I was like, "Oh, this is interesting that this is maybe a family movie and it's just straight up like there are gods and there are demons and crazy
Oh yeah,
shit's going to happen."
oh yeah, and you'll see that theming as well in other movies from Ghibli. Like there are a lot of like gods and demons and kind of entities of spirits, so to speak. So like you said, I think it gets the rap of like, oh, it's just kids movie, and it's just kind of watered down. And it's like, oh, you could definitely look at it that way, but I think there's a lot more under the hood than people realize.
Yeah, yeah, and I wasn't even thinking of that in a negative way because stuff made for
Yeah.
children can be really great.
Oh yeah.
But I was just a little surprised. I was like, "Oh, okay, I didn't know that we were going to be dealing with that kind of stuff." So yeah, I thought
Yes.
that was pretty interesting right off the bat, and then we're pretty quickly, we go from that intro and get into the story proper, where we meet. And like I said, I have a list of character names pulled up because I am terrible with names. But we meet Ashitaka. Is that correct?
Correct. That is Prince Ashitaka.
Yeah. So we meet him very quickly, and people, he's riding his elk. What was the elk's name?
Yakul. We fucking love Yakul.
Yeah, Yakul was very great. I liked Yakul a lot. But he is riding his elk, and some people are like, "Dog, there's some shit in the forest. You should check it out. Stuff's going down." So he's like, "Okay, well, I'm going to go to the watchtower. I'm going to see what's going on." He rides over to the watchtower, and before he even gets all the way up, he sees something moving in the woods. He goes up to the top of the watchtower. He's like, "Hey, man, you see that?" And he's like, "Yeah, there's something in the woods. I think it's bad. This doesn't feel right." And a goddamn like worm monster charges out. Like the animation
Yeah.
is. I can't overstate how cool the animation is on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I always think of him. He is like. I couldn't find a word. I was looking for a name for earlier. I was like, Worm Monster. Is that good enough? Yeah, Worm Monster's good enough. But we see pretty quickly too, like you said, the animation, like there's such fluidity in so much of the movement, especially with those worms coming, like kind of weaving in and out and stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty masterfully done. It's really impressive looking.
Yeah, and they're kind of contorting themselves into new limbs and stuff like that. Like he has at one point, he's kind of just clawing his way forward, with one big appendage, and then all of a sudden he has like 6 legs that he's skittering about on like a bug.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. The design at first, when it just looks like, oh, a creepy worm monster, it reminded me a lot of those Dark Souls 3 enemies that just explode into black goo.
Oh my god, yeah.
So yeah, that I was like, oh yeah, maybe this is inspiration for that. But yeah, we pretty quickly see that it is this massive boar under all of this shit. There is a boar that is the heart of it.
Yes.
And it's really sweet. I'm so sorry. The elk is standing at the bottom of the watchtower, and he's just like, "Oh shit, what the fuck is that thing?" And Ashitaka is like, "Get out of here, man! Like, run!" And it's just kind of a deer in headlights. And he shoots.
Like, oh no!
He like shoots an arrow down next to it and like snaps it out and runs away. I was like, "Oh, okay, good. I already love that guy. I don't want him to get hurt."
I know.
But yeah, it fucks up the watchtower. It just throws that straight up into the trees.
God, yeah.
Like this thing is not fucking around. And that was one thing. The movie just opens, and I was like, "Holy shit! This is like if Godzilla just opened and he was instantly fucking everything
Just
up."
stomping. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, "There's usually a little bit of build up, but they're just like, fuck it, we're getting to the good stuff." So from there, the monster kind of is going through the woods, making its way to the town, and Ashitaka does get back on. And I'm so sorry. What is the elk's name again?
Yakul.
Yakul. I'm going to remember that by the end of the episode. He gets on Yakul, and he is trying to get to the town, basically, to warn everybody. He sees it's the same three kids that had told him, like, hey, there's something in the woods, right? He runs into them again.
Yeah.
So he runs into them again, and he's like, get home. Some crazy shit's going down. There's a worm monster, and he's gonna fuck up your day. And then it, bursts out of the woods and sees these kids, and it's charging at them, and they're trying to run, and one of them falls down, and it's just like really harrowing. Like I said, just out of the gate, it's like, oh, okay, some real shit's going down.
Yeah, but the stakes are actually quite dire pretty quickly. It does a good job of that.
Ashitaka, is running toward, or he's riding towards the town, and this thing is trying to kill these kids, it's trying to kill him, and he, has a bow, and he is, going around it and trying to get its attention and trying to draw it away from the town, and he shoots.
Yeah, and
Oh, you go ahead.
And he's actually like he's like, hey, he's talking to it. He's like, hey, you're just being angry. Please calm down, calm your rage, turn around. And he's like actually trying to communicate with it.
Yeah, he's telling it like, hey, the village is over here. Like, we don't have any problem. We're just hanging out. Go away. We don't want any trouble. Basically,
Right.
It does not give a fuck. It's like, no, I'm coming to fuck up this town. So anyway, he's trying to draw its attention. He fires an arrow right into its eye, and it, that seems to hurt it. That's the one thing that has hurt it so far, because he's been trying and nothing's been working.
Yeah.
And some of the black goo worms get on his arm, and that becomes a big thing, like, throughout the movie. That's kind of the driving thing that happens here, the inciting incident, as they say.
Yeah, it kind of burns marks into his arm that just kind of seem to be part of him for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, and from that, very first thing where it kind of reminded me of Venom, the Venom goo.
Yeah.
But from that very first thing, we see his arm starting to do weird stuff, growing and shrinking. It's kind of Popeye the Sailor Man.
Yeah.
Is what I kept thinking of, eating spinach. So anyway, that's already something that's weird. He does kill the boar underneath all this, and the, goo worm monsters also seem to die with the boar.
Right.
And I thought this was really interesting, and maybe indicative of something made in Japan, and I think in American culture it wouldn't be portrayed this way so much. The boar is dead, and everybody's looking at it like, holy shit, what the fuck? This thing is massive. It was a god. It was a demon. And he is, Ashitaka is there, and everybody's worried about him because of his arm. And the kind of the leader of, or at least the spiritual leader, I don't know about any other kind of leadership, but the spiritual leader of the village goes and stands in front of the boar, and she's just like, we're so sorry. We are going to, build a mound for you. We're going to give you funeral rites, and we hope that you don't have any malice for us. Like, we don't have malice for you. We just didn't want you to fuck up the village. And I thought that was kind of cool, because I can see in so many like American things, it would be played as them like, oh, I fucked you up. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah, boy. I big game Hunter Cabela's 2024.
Yeah, like,
hell yeah.
Yeah, it would just be very much played as like, oh yeah, I conquered. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and again, that's kind of the very first obvious kind of, and it's not afraid to tell you too, where it's just like, this is like, we should try to actually respect animals and the environment, and we'll talk about that more and more as this goes on. But that's kind of the first incident we see here, where it's kind of like, these boars are treated as they're intelligent entities, they're intelligent things that would have emotions and feelings, and they're treated that way by these people of this village, and that's really portrayed in a positive light, which I think, like you said, wouldn't be the case in a lot of places. So hey, yeah, thumbs up for me on that.
Yeah, and I didn't even take away so much, because don't get me wrong, the environmentalism is there 100%. But I thought it was really folded into this wider discussion about violence in general, and
Yes, very true.
how it treats it. Again, even in this situation where it had to be done, because how many people would have died if they hadn't done anything? But it's still just treated as a tragedy. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
treated as like, well, it's still really fucking sad that this giant god boar thing had to die, and was a demon and all this stuff. So I thought that was a really neat, kind of interesting first look into something that's going to be kind of the major theme of this movie.
Yeah, and so like you said too, it's one of those things where it's like, so basically when the boar is passing away, this really fucking harrowing shit happens where it just fucking, he basically, as he's dying, in response to what the high priestess, the priest of the spiritual leader of the village just said, it's like, no, fuck you. You will feel my agony and rage. And then his flesh melts off his body.
Yeah.
And it's just bones. And I'm just like, holy shit, that's fucked up. And
he's also, he's like, you parasite, you're going to feel my wrath.
yeah, it's rough. And kind of important to what you were just getting at was, a small kind of iron ball rolls out of his corpse where it was.
Oh, I thought that was... I didn't realize that it showed it that early, because I do know that pretty quickly she shows it, but I didn't realize that it showed him it come out of his corpse.
Oh no, yeah, I'm just getting ahead of the story here.
So okay. Okay, no, I'm sorry, I misunderstood then. But yeah, did you have anything else that you wanted to say about that scene where he's just like, "Fuck you, even in death, I'm gonna avenge"?
No, yeah, I mean it's a pretty, like you said, pretty abrupt first scene.
Yeah,
it's pretty exciting right away on that. It's like, wow, okay.
Yeah, so and that's the setup, and like I said, it does that really well, I think, where it starts out exciting and it kind of draws you in, but also it just very quickly sets up the rest of the movie. I don't think there's anything wrong with a slow burn. I really like a slow burn. But I also think it's great to be like, oh, okay, the first 5 minutes, we're going to tell you what this character's goals are, and then we're just going to deal with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that.
So, yeah, I thought that was done well. Like, it didn't feel abrupt or anything. It felt like, oh, okay, I know what's going on. I'm just placed in this, and now I get to see it play out.
Yeah.
But, yeah, from there, we, it kind of cuts to in the village. The priestess, or whatever her title is telling Ashitaka and kind of the rest of a lot of other people in the village are in this big room, and she's just telling them like, okay, I've done this ceremony or whatever that will show me your future and your fate. And he's like, okay, well, what is it? And she's like, that mark on your arm that the boar gave you, that is going to rend your flesh, and you are going to die. And he's just like, he's just like, okay then, like he takes it like a champ.
Yeah, he's like, all right, if that's what's gonna happen, I guess.
And she's just like, you got to get out of here, that they're maybe you can fix it, but you need to go talk to does she straight up tell him that he needs to go to the spirit of the forest?
Yeah, she says a forest god to the far west.
Yeah. So she tells him, like, okay, that is your one chance, because you're pretty fucked otherwise.
Yeah.
And I was kind of curious what the significance of this is, because they, he is the prince, and they're like talking about how the emperor had kind of driven them from their homes, several hundred years ago, and generation by generation they've kind of died off basically. And they've lost their way of life, and they've lived as in this little village way away from everything. And anyway, what I'm getting at is it talks about how he is the last prince, and that is why this is such a blow to them, because they're like, well, that's our future gone. But he has to cut his hair, and I was wondering if that was like a known symbolic thing in Japanese culture or anything like that I wasn't picking up on.
I'm not so learned on that aspect of things, to be honest with you. I'm sure somebody out here listening is. But if I'm not mistaken, it's kind of almost like an abandonment of your post kind of deal, or like leaving the duty kind of thing, um, or because because he has to. So it's like even because he has to, like it's still he's leaving his post, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah, it just wasn't.
I may be wrong on that. That's just my assumption.
Yeah, it felt like there was a lot of weight to that symbol of him
Yes.
cutting his hair.
To the point where it's even like the laws forbid us to watch you leave. Where it's like,
Yeah.
and there may be some historical significance there. I'm just not privy to.
Yeah, I always think that because there are so many little symbols that we will see in a movie that is just something that is shorthand. We know what it means, and it's really interesting
Yeah.
to see foreign films and things that it's like, oh, okay, well, I don't really know the significance of that.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, she straight up tells him, she's like, you are dead to us, and it's not even in a malicious way. She's just like, them's the rules. Like,
Yeah.
you were dealt a shit hand, kid. So it cuts to night, and he is riding out of the village, and his sister comes out, and she's like, "Oh, keep this to remember me," and it's a crystal dagger,
Yeah.
and so that happens, and he just rides off, and that's kind of that. He's just gone from the village for the rest of the movie, and I was like, "Damn, that's actually really sad."
Yeah, and yeah, so this part I wanted to talk about specifically because it really leans into the really beautiful backgrounds here in this montage as he's riding out. It's like gorgeous.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the first time that this musical motif comes on that is used a lot throughout this movie in these big kind of emotional scenes and just anything grandiose. And it's
That
really beautiful. Like, it's so pretty. And it works so well. And that was a note that I made in this scene is, like, this just already feels so grand. Like, we see these huge landscapes, just rolling on, these mountains, rising above everything, and there's mist kind of down in the valleys.
Yeah. See, that's the so Ghibli does that shit, man, where they will just like evoke an emotion in you. It's like, why the fuck do I feel this right? Like, what the fuck are you doing? How are you doing this? Like, why do I care so much about this? But yeah, like you said, that musical motif is such a strong thing that you'll see later too, in more pivotal action moments as well. So I'm glad you picked up on that too.
Yeah, no, that, like I said, that was something that I thought did really well. I always think it's interesting when and it's really interesting in this because it's animated, so often when, at least in my experience, I'm not saying that this never happens. It's just not something I'm as familiar with. And, so often when these landscapes can kind of dominate a film, it's because they're just filming in a really pretty place or a really visually interesting place or just something. And I thought it was done so well that the land feels so alive and like such a big part of this movie.
Yeah, and it's all most of it's done by hand, and that's and watercolor at that. It's beautiful, beautiful stuff. They are, like I said, there's a reason that they're lauded so highly for that kind of stuff. Where they're such creative. Like I said, it's almost like I almost approach everything like with a fine art outlook, which is, it makes it a little more time consuming to make, I'm sure, but the results are there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, like we were saying, there's definitely, and I know that this isn't a kid's movie or whatever, but, over here we think of a lot of animation as made for children just because that is what is typically made and marketed. And some of it is so good, but there's also so much of it that's just schlock. And it's really exciting to me to see animation and stuff like that is so much care is going into it as an art form versus just like, okay, we're gonna shit this thing out and some kids will watch it or just whoever is gonna watch it. So yeah, it's beautiful.
And that's something Miyazaki's really passionate about. He is very much like, please do not edit this. This is something that when we put it together, we had a vision. This is our art form. Please don't edit it or alter it when you distribute it because we want it to be true to form. And I admire that. I think that's a nice thing to say because some people worked really hard on that. You don't want somebody else to come up and then change your creative vision. I think that's great. So, like you said, it's so nice. I think that's why so many people love the Ghibli stuff, is because it's so refreshing in that regard. Where it's like there will just be like a one or two stills, even where it's like that, just kind of the colors and the landscape or whatever, just kind of gets you stirring a little bit emotionally. It's like, oh, that's just, I wish I were there, you know?
Yeah, and that's one thing that always really annoys me about, because via animation or video games or just whatever, there's a floor of effort. Like, I get that you can just shit something out, but there's still a lot of effort that has to go into it just to have any kind of product. And it's always so sad to me to think about these people who have poured their lives into learning animation or coding or just whatever, and then they get paid to make just the worst shit to make somebody else money. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
So stuff like this, I do really, even though I don't know a ton about animation and stuff, I do really love that you can tell that there were people who were, I'm sure just very proud of their work and were able to just pour themselves into something that they loved. So I think that that's really something that comes through in every shot of this, or every scene, I should say.
I'm glad you feel that way. Awesome.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful movie. Like, it is so pretty. And it's the same thing with, like a lot of Disney stuff isn't my thing, but I can appreciate the artistry of it. Like that scene in Beauty and the Beast where it, mimics a camera moving through the ballroom, Like, there's just so much skill, in that.
It's incredible. If you see the keyframes, oh, it's amazing. It's amazing stuff.
Yeah, so
stuff
it's
I can never fucking do.
no, God, I can't even think about how to do it. But no, yeah, this was an absolutely beautiful movie, and what it turned its eye to, I think, worked really well. Where it was like, oh, okay, a lot of work is going to go into just the backgrounds, and like this is just going to be a really pretty landscape,
Yeah, and that's just the backgrounds, let alone the rest of the movie. So
yeah, yeah.
I guess if it's okay, we should probably get back in the story. As much as
Yeah.
I'd love to keep talking about the backgrounds.
No, yeah. No, so from there it just like really abruptly cuts to him traveling, and there's just a fucking war happening. Like, he's just like, oh, a battle's going on, and he looks a little bit closer at this village, and he's like, no, actually it's just a fucking slaughter. And we just see these heavily armed and armored samurai just fucking cutting apart these people who just look like peasants, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And
Yep.
I was just like, Jesus Christ, it really smacks you with it. And then pretty quickly, like, so he's trying to just ride past. He's like, look, nothing I can do. I don't want any part of this. And a couple samurai and I think it's a couple other guys see him, and they're like, hey, who are you? Get over here. And he is riding away, and they're chasing him, and people get in the road in front of him, and it's very much like he doesn't want to be involved in this, but now he is. So he draws his bow, and his arm does this weird thing where it like grows, and we see all the fucking slime worms in his arm, basically just like supercharging him, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's when he shoots the arrow that just takes off both arms of this samurai. Like, I think it hits his sword, but it just rips his arms off. And when I saw that, I was just like, God damn.
Yeah, and it's like he does that, and then like a couple other guys come up, and then like they start shooting at him, and so he just pops one guy's head off. It's like, oh Jesus!
Yeah, it just gets
like
it gets hyper violent like really quickly.
Yeah, and yeah, it's crazy. It's very abrupt with that scene where it's like and it shows again. It's just, I think it's really more so to show like, yeah, he doesn't want anyone to get involved in this shit. He doesn't want anybody to be fucking hurting each other. But he's like, but fuck, like, what do I do? Like, they're gonna kill me. Fuck, I have to defend myself.
And that was one thing that I was like, oh, okay, I don't think the tropes are working in this movie's favor. Does that make sense?
Not quite.
So like, I felt like it was kind of having its cake and eating it too, where it like is constantly showing us, violence in war is just a tragedy. There's, just stop it, don't do it, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But then we just have this superpowered protagonist that just fucking murders people. And, like, I get that he doesn't want to do it and everything, but it's still, like, the aesthetic of violence is still there, where...
Oh, I get that.
I'm like, okay, I get that that's probably, like, a shonen thing, where it's, there has to... Or not necessarily has to be, but it's probably very typical of this, young man to, have... Not like powers, but like abilities and all this stuff.
Yeah,
but
heart's in the right place, but maybe the actions aren't. How do I say? I can see that criticism. The one thing I thought maybe is that like there wasn't much like rumination on it after the fact, and I was like, maybe they should have mentioned that a little more because that probably was pretty harrowing. But then again, I also like, is he a soldier? He may have already seen combat. Maybe he's used to that shit. I don't know.
Yeah. And because they do kind of instantly say like, oh, he's a warrior. Like there's something.
Yeah.
And he has a short sword and he has a bow, so he's armed. But yeah, that was one kind of criticism I guess you'd say I had, because it always frames it as he's defending himself. But, like, everyone else in the movie, you could argue, is defending themselves, and it's still shown just to be a tragedy in a way that maybe it doesn't apply to his violence, if that makes sense. Like I said, that was just my interpretation of it.
I can see that. I can see why you think that, though. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said,
I think especially when you have someone who's like you said, given a superpower, by default we kind of have to look at him with a little more scrutiny. Like, well, you have a superpower though. Why are you exempt? I see what you're saying.
Yeah. But yeah, it just doesn't sit with that stuff as much as it does a lot of the other violence that we're going to see later in this movie. And I mean, even that we have seen where, they killed the boar and we see kind of the respect given and everything when, these dudes are just getting fucking slaughtered. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, they're dead now. But yeah, so that was something I was definitely going to touch on. I was just like, oh, okay, this feels like maybe a trope of shonen that is kind of not working in this film for me. But like I said, that's just a personal thing.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so from there, does it cut right from that part to the scene, where they are moving the oxen kind of through that mountain path? Is that right?
So I believe that he actually meets Jiko first.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, he's in this town and he's trying to buy rice, and he gives the woman selling the rice this little gold nugget. And he's like, here, this should pay for the rice. And she's like, this isn't money. What the fuck you want me to do with this bullshit?
Golden nuggets? What is this, Skyrim?
Yeah. She's like, it's like, the fuck you think I was born yesterday? I don't want this shit. And then Jigo, is that his name?
Is it Jiko or Jiko?
Jiko.
I think it's Jiko, is it not? Maybe I'm wrong.
I have it right here. Let me look instead of just... Jigo.
Jigo, okay.
Yeah, Jigo, who is Billy Bob Thornton, Bad Santa himself, comes up and is like, that's a gold nugget. That's worth a lot more than this bag of rice. And he's like, oh, is there a money changer here that can tell us how much this is worth? And Ashitaka just does not give a fuck. He's like, look, I just need this rice. That is...
Yeah.
He's like, I don't really care how much it's worth or if... they're getting a better deal than me. Like, I just need the rice. That's all I'm here for. So he just kind of walks off. And Jigo very much kind of tries to ingratiate himself. And he's like, oh, don't thank me for, trying to help you get that better deal. I should be thanking you. And he very much is like, oh, yeah, we're riding together and all this stuff. Then it cuts to them. They're in this cave and they have a campfire. They're sharing a meal together, and Jigo lets it be known that he is of the world, and he's like, oh yeah, it's crazy that there were these people who were around a few hundred years ago, and they rode a red elks just like yours, and they their arrowheads were stone just like yours, but they're all dead. So I know that you're not like one of them. And he's like,
and he's very much like like, yeah, definitely not.
yeah,
He's kind of like,
yeah. So he's just like, he lets it be known that he knows what the fuck is up, but he still kind of plays it. He's trying to play it as it's like this wise fool almost. He's like, yeah, I'm of the
yes,
world. I know what's going on, but I'm also just fucking around. Like I don't, I'm just
little old me. I'm just a little priest peasant man.
yeah. He's just like, I'm just hanging out, eating rice with my new buddy. Like that's it.
Yeah,
So he's kind of
he's sus. We'll
yeah.
just say he's sus
Yeah.
from the get go.
Yeah, he definitely is presenting himself in a way that we later learn is just, not at all who he is. And I think that's why at first I was like, why the fuck is Billy Bob Thornton voicing this character? This is so weird. But then when we learn
That's
more,
who he is as a person.
yeah, but then later when we learn more about him, I'm like, oh, okay, it makes sense that Billy Bob Thornton is voicing this character. um, but then the next morning, Ashitaka, wakes up early and is riding away, and Jigo is like being a cheeky little son of a bitch, and opens his eyes a little bit, and he's like, "Oh, I'll see you in the forest, buddy. Like,
Yeah.
maybe I'll beat you there." And then he just kind of goes back to sleep. He's just not even worried about it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think now is where we cut to the oxen.
Yeah. So then it cuts to the scene in which we meet Lady Eboshi, who
Correct.
I think is a really cool character, like really interesting. But
Very much so.
yeah, so they're on this kind of thin mountain road, and they have all these oxen that are burdened with rice that they're taking to, which we later learn to be Irontown is where they're going, but right now we don't know much about them. And they spot these wolves, and they're not just wolves, they're like some really big wolves with
we're talking like Sith for Dark Souls wolves.
yeah, just like massive. And there's somebody, and we can't tell what kind of critter is on the back of one of these wolves, but there's some kind of little thing on the back riding one. And
Yes.
they're like, oh shit, the wolves are here, they're coming. And it very much seems like something that they've been planning for. So they get their fucking guns out and they just start blasting. And these wolves are like dodging between fire. And then an even bigger wolf appears that they're like, oh, okay, that's the one I was waiting for. Lady Eboshi's like, that's the one I was waiting for. That's the mother.
Moro.
Yeah. She's like, shit's got real, and now it's time to fight. And what was the Moro? Is that right?
I believe so.
So Moro is just like rampaging through these men and these oxen, and they, just all kinds of people, and just everybody's flying off of this cliff and being mauled, and
Yeah.
Lady Eboshi just like very patiently waits for her shot. She's standing there with the rifle, and well, it's not even a rifle so much at this point, but it's some kind of firearm, and just waiting for her shot to open up. And as soon as it opens up, she takes it, and Moro falls off the cliff as well that a lot of other men fell off, and one of the other men's like, oh, we have to go down the mountain and try and save those men. And she's like, they're dead. Like that.
Yep. Fuck them.
She's like, that's just gonna lead to more people dying if we try and fight these wolves and go down this mountain and get these people. She's like, it's gonna take a lot more than that to kill a god. Like, that wolf is not dead. If we go down there, more people are gonna die. We need to get back. So already is kind of presenting her as like, obviously it's a very tough decision, but it's showing her as this very just like kind of a good leader that's like, no, like, I hate that they're gone, but I can't worry about the dead. I need to worry about the living, and we need to get out of here safely.
Yeah, and if later on she makes some pretty cold-hearted comments and decisions, but all of it's kind of almost coming from a good place. She's in a really complex situation in this story, I think more so than most people. She's kind of in the middle of a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, it's really interesting because her motivation, I could see a lot of people, like in a simpler story and something less interesting, if we just had a character with her motivation, I think it would be easy to just paint them as just this wholly evil and uninteresting. But it shows, how she treats the people around her and how she's kind of really trying to build something for everyone else, and it makes her very sympathetic to me, at least.
Yeah, it's, again, we'll get more into the decisions she makes later, but again, tough calls all around.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like based on her people and the people she lives with, she has to make decisions that she knows are wrong and that she knows hurt others, and that's fucking sad.
Yeah. So overall, like I said, not even. I do think that she's a complex character that is shown to be, I mean, for better or for worse, a good and effective leader. So I think there's a lot to like already about her. If I remember correctly, the next scene kind of cuts to Ashitaka, and he is down at the bottom, like kind of in the ravine below where this battle has just taken place. And he sees the god, the wolf, lying in this I don't remember if it's I think it's a river, and also sees these two injured men, and he is saving these men and trying to get them help, essentially. And he goes and he sees the wolf, and the two smaller wolves ride out, and we see that the little critter that was riding on the back of one of them is a woman with like these markings on her face, and she starts like there's the wound where this wolf was shot, and she like buries her face in it and is like getting the blood out and like spitting it into the river, and
Right.
it's just like really fucking metal. And then they all see that Ashitaka is watching them, and they just kind of look over and stare him down, and he hops out like onto the log or whatever that he was hiding behind, and he tells them who he is and what his mission is. He's like, look, my hand has this thing because I killed a demon, and I need to find the spirit of the forest. And they just do not give a shit, and they just walk away. So then he goes back to these injured men. One of them is conscious, one of them is not. The conscious one is...
I love this part.
Yeah, the conscious one is like freaking the fuck out, and he's like, man, what's wrong? And there's just this creepy little guy. Like, he's just these, just a face with two black holes for eyes and like a black hole for a mouth. And his head just starts moving in this weird way, and it makes these clicking sounds.
Rattles. It's like...
And dude's just freaking out.
Yeah.
He's like, fuck that thing. That ain't normal. I don't like that shit. And
that shit ain't my Republican America.
Yeah, he's like, not in Trump's America. We're not going to have that shit. And Ashitaka's like, man, calm down. It's just like a tree spirit. He's chill.
Yeah, and they're actually called Kodama. That's what their Japanese name is. So if you ever see that word, it's like a tree spirit. That's what they are.
Yeah, and this was another like thing that I thought of that, or just something I thought that was interesting, is they really reminded me of the little guys you can find in the new Legend of Zelda games, and I was like, oh, that's
I believe that's probably some similarity there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's that's just something from like folklore or something. It's interesting to see that. If you just see it once in Legend of Zelda, you're like, oh, they created these little creatures. That's awesome. And then you see it in other places, and you're like, oh, that's just from folklore. That's really neat.
Yeah, it's cool.
So there's like more and more tree spirits appear, and they're doing their weird little clicky head thing. And he's like,
I want to interrupt. I fucking love the Kodama so fucking much. They're adorable. They're this is something Ghibli does. Well, they will hit you with a fucking cute as hell little tiny guy, and they're like, well, what if there were thousands of them?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh hell yeah, I'm here for this.
He's like going uphill carrying this injured man, and the other guy is riding. Oh shit! I keep forgetting the elk's name.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, Yakul. The other guy's riding Yakul, and he's just looking around. He's just like, "Fuck this! I don't like all these little guys. I don't trust them." And one of them is leading him up this hill, and Ashitaka's
Yeah.
like, "Man, you need to calm down. This little guy's helping us. He's gonna get us back to your, where your home is." And he's like, "Nah, fuck this. I don't like this shit." Um, but they end up in this kind of. It's kind of like a clearing with an island and there's I mean kind of a lake like within this forest, and he's getting water for the injured man, and he looks over and he sees some deer, and it's like in this golden light, and they're just kind of silhouettes, and then one walks by with just this massive rack of antlers, to the point that it's not even antlers, it's just an insane amount of like horns and antlers and all this stuff.
It's like a crown almost.
Yeah. And he's like, "Oh my god!" And then it runs away, and he looks at the guy that's conscious and the one that's been freaking out about the tree spirits. He's like, "Man, did you see that?" And he's like, "Did I see what?" And he's like, "Oh, okay, never mind then."
And what's really important here too is that when he makes eye contact with the silhouette of that thing, and as he looks at the silhouette, his arm is just like, I fucking hate it, and his arm freaks the fuck out.
Oh,
it's like,
yeah.
his arm's like, oh shit, I can't handle that thing looking at me, and it very much implies like that is the god, that is the deer god, the tree, the spirit of the forest, and whatever's in his arm is essentially out to get it or doesn't like it. So it pretty much shows pretty quickly, like, okay, that thing is extremely powerful just by being within eyesight of it. In fact, when it leaves frame, the light fades back away to the darkness, and it's like, oh, it's just ethereal, literally.
Yeah, and this was the first example. This is just like a little thing that I thought was really cool. When his arm is freaking out, he like dunks it down in the water, and where the bowl is like touching the silt at the at the bottom of this little lake or whatever. There's just this really beautiful way that they've drawn the silt like moving throughout the water, and we see this several times where they animate just stuff like that in the water, and it's just so well done. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, again, they're one of the few studios that can nail water physics down and like make it look not crazy weird.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful. It's done so well. So yeah, that was the first time I was like, oh my god, that's really cool. And they do it several times, to the point that I'm like, damn, they're just showing off. This isn't even hard to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so after that, do they ride? He doesn't see any, if I remember correctly, after that, they kind of ride out of the forest and see Irontown. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, okay. I couldn't remember if he had a run-in with Princess Mononoke or anything before that.
Not yet.
Okay. But yeah, so they ride out of the forest, and they see Irontown, and the guy who's conscious is telling him a little bit about it. He's like, yeah, we extract iron from the sand, and we have a massive forge, and this is kind of what drives our economy 100% is iron.
Yeah.
And that's why they had to trade for all of this rice, because they are not producing any of their own food. Like, this is they're fully behind iron.
Yeah.
And they get across the lake between them and Irontown, and it's kind of played for the guy who's been conscious is kind of a comedic relief character a little bit. And he's like, hey guys, look at me, I'm so and so, the oxen driver. You thought I was dead, but I'm alive.
It's me.
And they're like, wait, that fucking idiot's alive? Like, what? How did he survive when all these other guys?
You motherfuckers fell off a cliff. Only 2 of you survived of the 3 that fell. How the hell did that happen? And so like they like get up and shore, and it's a big fucking deal, right?
Yeah.
With all the people around them.
Yeah, everybody's like, oh man, like they're just so excited to see him. And then his wife comes down. And she's just like, at first she's like excited to see him, and then she's just like, man, you're one stupid motherfucker, you know that? And she's just roasting the shit out of him, and she's roasting everybody around him, like the captain of the guard. She's just like, you don't do shit. Like, my husband shouldn't have even been down at the bottom of that cliff if you'd been doing your fucking job. And she's just laying into everybody. And this was another thing that I thought is probably like kind of a trope, where she instantly is just like the main character. She's just like, ooh, let me see your face, I bet you're handsome. And then she sees his face, and she's like, oh, I was wrong.
Ooh, you are handsome.
No, she's like, I was wrong, you're gorgeous. And I'm just like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm just like, man, this guy's just rolling into town, fucking, all the women are instantly just like, fuck our husbands. Like, and one of them even tells a joke. Oh no, I think it's her. She's telling the captain of the guard, she's like, if you continue to not do your job, we're all gonna have to get new husbands, you asshole. And they all just laugh. They're like, damn, she's just giving it to him.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the pitfall that when you see with that kind of trope, because that is a trope, obviously, in a lot of shonen, you have a lot of main character men who all the women just, look at Sasuke, all the women just want to be with Sasuke. But I fucking hate Sasuke, as you should fucking hate Sasuke, as everybody should fucking hate Sasuke. But it's like, there's a point where it becomes almost kind of like, there's that pitfall, the Sasuke effect, so to speak. But it's like, that's because Sasuke's an asshole, too. Where it's like, Ashitaka doesn't come off as an asshole at any point in this, really.
And it kind of...
Like, he's handsome, so what? He's not gross about it.
And, like, I wasn't bothered by it because I was like, I recognized, like, okay, this is probably kind of a trope where, like, the main character and everybody's, like, so interested in him. But it worked for me because all the women, we pretty quickly learn, all the women that work in Irontown, Lady Eboshi has gone around to all the brothels and basically bought out the contract of all the prostitutes. And she's like, look, you don't have to live this life. Like, come work for me. You can, like, we can build this together. And so, like, they have kind of this history together, and they're very, like, all these women, and they're very independent. They're their own group where they kind of very much feel like they're doing the real work. They're the ones really driving the economy of this town. And,
right.
Like, I don't know, maybe this is wrong me say, but, like, it makes sense that these women maybe came out of brothels and they're going to be kind of like, buddy with each other and like, oh, let's talk shit about these men. You know what I mean? Like,
well, sure. I mean, it's almost like, we've seen some shit. We're happy to fucking rag on people. You know what I mean? It's like, how do I say this? Misery loves company in a way where it's like, there's camaraderie there, I don't think it's wrong to say that.
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to speak for any women listening. But my point being is, like, I don't think I think Ghibli portrays women very positively. I don't think it portrays women as idiots or like... or like kind of just like you look back at like a lot of like Pokemon and shit where it's like, oh yeah, girls love shopping. I'm like, all right, well... It's a little more. There's better ways to portray a woman.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at. Is like they come across as really interesting, and not only that, but they come across as like just so much more competent than the men around them. And
that's great.
The men kind of know this, and it pisses them off.
Yeah,
because like the next scene is Ashitaka is in this big kind of dining hall, I guess you would say, with the men, and all the women kind of come up, and they're just like, "Oh, Ashitaka, come see where we work. Don't listen to these fucking jabronis." And and he's like, "Okay, well, I'll come see it." And they're like, "Oh, hell yeah!" And they walk away, and all the men like instantly start talking shit about the women. They're just like, "Oh, ignore them. They're so fucking annoying." And this one guy is just like, he's like, "No, our leader was so smart to bring them here, give them better lives, and to have this like really loyal labor force that is proud of this place and excited about this place and wants to build this place." And they're instantly like, "Shut the fuck up, old man, you don't know anything. This is a boys club. He-man woman hater."
Yeah, and like you said, they really quickly paint Lady Eboshi, and rightfully so, as a person who's really kind of fighting for people, like giving them freedom, treating them equally and well and honestly. But it also kind of shows like what she had to do to make that happen. And that's kind of the first like, kind of a two sides of the coin, so to speak, kind of deal with her decision making, where it's like, okay, so in order to get these trees cut down to get to the sand to make the iron, she had to do some bad things to these boars.
Yeah, yeah, it does pretty quickly get into that where it shows them just slaughtering these boars. And we learn that she is the reason that that one giant boar at the beginning of the movie was a demon because someone had shot it. That was the iron ball that was in it, was essentially a bullet. And she's building this place for everybody that is, seems to be improving a lot of lives, but she's building it on blood. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And it's like I said earlier, it's like it's coming from a noble place, but it's like she has to in her mind kind of like be like, well, this has to happen, otherwise they're going to be living poorly. And it's like it's a terrible thing to have to weigh. And it's like it rightfully shows it as an atrocity where it's like, oh god, these poor fucking boars, like they didn't deserve this. They're just trying to live.
Yeah, and she's very aware of the fact that they are, and I'm not even saying like it makes it all right if it's just like a stupid animal or whatever, but like she is very aware of the fact that they are connected to this land and to these gods. And if she can destroy the land, and if she can destroy these gods, they will be just mindless animals that will be so much easier to take care of, like in her mind. So she's very much calculated this as like, oh, okay, I need to do these bad things, maybe because she wants to help people, but she's still like, I gotta kill gods, I gotta destroy the land. And yeah, so like it very quickly does paint her as, we see her as the strong leader, as this person who is, kind of getting these women out of these brothels and stuff, and hopefully improving their lives. And everybody loves her and they're so loyal to her. But then we also see that she will straight up admit, like, yeah, I'm gonna have to do some terrible shit. We're all gonna have to do some terrible shit.
Yeah, and it's man, oof, a little too relatable. And that's what I'm saying. Ghibli's not afraid to, in the Dark Ones, it's not afraid to hit you with that kind of like, think about that for a minute. It's like, ooh, yeah, it's like, God, can we not just find a better way? And it's like, it's like, I hate this.
Yeah, and so we kind of see all this happening. She does tell him, Ashitaka, because he comes to talk to her, and she's like, oh, you want to see my secret? And he's like, yeah, and he kind of presents, this bullet and all this stuff once he learns. But anyway, she goes and shows him this, compound where all these lepers are designing new guns, designed specifically for this job of like wiping out these animals, and built specifically for these women who are very loyal to her. And so, like, once again, she is taking care of these lepers and, making sure that they have the best quality of life. And not only that, but, like, a purpose, and that they feel really valued.
Yeah.
But it's also, like, they're building machine guns, essentially.
Yeah, no, they're yeah. It's a tough balance where it's like, oh yes, I love these people. Let's put them to work by making war machines, and it's like, ooh, okay,
yeah.
But it's like, and Ashitaka gets fucking because they go over the bullet, and she's like, yeah, I'm the entire reason that Nago, the boar that he had to kill in the beginning and cursed him, I'm the entire reason that Nago actually attacked your village in the first place, and so he sees her building these guns, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? You're just going to create more and more bloodshed. This is going to get worse and worse until the point where we're all dead. And he's like very pissed off about it, to the point where he gets so mad that his arm just starts to draw the sword.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh, shit. He's in control. He's like, I don't want to kill you. I'm not going to kill you. But he's like, look what's happening to me in my arm because of what it knows. Like, look at the pain you've caused it. Like, in a way, it's right to feel angry at you because, yeah, of course it'd want to kill you. Look what you did to its people,
Yeah, it just wants that revenge.
Right. And then I love this one of the eldest lepers speaks up here and kind of stops their argument because they're getting really intense, and he kind of interjects. He says, "Listen, she's done a lot for us, and we understand what she's had to do. Like, this is awful. We all know it is." And he says a line. He says, "Life is suffering and pain, but we will still choose to live. Look at me. I'm a leper. Like, I found no will to live until I came here. Now I have a will to be around people and my loved ones." It's like, it's God. It's like, and he puts a really positive spin on this and just kind of stops her argument. It's like, that's a good way to look at things. Like, just keep. There's always a reason to live in spite of tragedy.
Yeah, so like I said, like even kind of early on, we're getting these really interesting characters, and that's something I thought I did really well in a lot of ways. But just to continue moving this plot along, pretty quickly after this, they sound the alarm, and Ashitaka seems to have kind of like a sixth sense, kind of. I guess he's
Yeah,
connected to these gods and all this stuff, so he kind of knows stuff about them and what's going to happen before it happens. So he's like,
sure.
oh, like the wolves are coming, like she is here, because they've kind of established that, I don't remember what they call her, but Princess Mononoke, is her whole reason for living is she wants to kill Lady Eboshi. So he's
Yes.
like, "Oh, they're here," and then they sound the alarm. The watchtower sees them, and there's this really badass scene where,
Are you talking about where the fucking wolf like slams?
yeah, the wolf just is running up the fucking wall essentially and slams into the
Yeah.
battlement and just launches her up on top of the wall, and she just
It's
goes.
badass.
She just starts going on this fucking rampage where she's just like has this little knife basically and is just cutting through like fighting everybody, and she's just on a mission, and everybody, like the troops, are rallying. They get Lady Eboshi in this square, and she has all these guards, these women outfitted with the guns, and the guards have
Yeah.
their swords and all this stuff, and she's just like, we're gonna fucking kill this kid, or she's gonna get me. So we all need to fight. And
Yeah.
Ashitaka does not want this to happen. He does not want Princess Mononoke to get hurt. So he's trying to just get her to walk away and just get her to leave. And she keeps just like fighting him. She's like,
Yeah. He's like,
she's,
please just get the fuck out. This is all a setup.
yeah, he's like, this is a trap. Like, you're gonna die. And she's just like, you won't fucking fight me though. You won't say that to my face. uh, and so she's just carving a fucking path through everybody, to get to Lady Eboshi. And my note for this part is everyone is a boss battle, because
Yeah.
she gets to Lady Eboshi and they just start having the most badass fucking knife fight I've ever seen. Um, and everybody's just gathered around, like, kick her ass. And Ashitaka, his arm is going fucking Super Saiyan, and he
Because he's
just,
like pissed off. It
yeah,
seems when he's like emotionally aggravated, it gets kind of a mind of its own.
yeah. So we, see this fight, and we see in the background people. He's like bending swords, and we see people start
Yeah.
to kind of like get thrown out of the way, and he gets between them, and he's like, "Y'all need to stop." And he knocks them both out, and he just tells these people, like, hey, take Lady Eboshi. I don't want anybody to get hurt. Just take her away. I'm gonna take
Yeah.
this fucking feral wolf girl, and we're gonna leave. That is all that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And this one woman is like, how fucking dare you treat Lady Eboshi this way? She's brought you into her home, and we've fed you, we've been kind to you and all this stuff. And he's walking away, or no, she says, she like points the gun at him. She's like, you're gonna stand right there, you're not gonna leave. And he just kind of turns around and starts to walk away. He's like, look, either you're going to shoot me or you're not. And the gun goes off. It's kind of played as she's starting to lower it, but the gun goes off. And he just
Yeah.
gets shot. And it's like through
Yeah.
the chest, basically. Oh, we did
Yeah.
we did skip one part where he goes by the forge that all the women, their job is like pump the bellows.
Oh yeah, we did.
And he like takes his shirt off, and I just put I put this fucking twink. That was my note. Because Ashitaka is just like the most handsome twink on the planet, and everybody knows it. But anyway, back to him walking out. He is like walking out of, it's a walled city, so he gets up to the gate, and these two guys are just like, hey man, please just, we don't want to hurt you. We saw what you did for everybody. Like, you brought our friends back. We don't want to hurt you. Please just leave her here. Don't get involved in this. And he is, pushing on the gate, trying to lift it. And they're like, man, you're going to kill yourself, because he starts bleeding just a ton. They're like, you're going to kill yourself. It takes 10 men to open this. And does he open it himself? What happens?
I think he opens it himself, yeah. And they're just, cause I think his arm is like kicking in, where it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, so he gets out of the city, and he passes out, and Princess Mononoke wakes up. Oh, I fucking love this part.
Okay, if it's what I think you're gonna say, I'm in the same boat.
No, yeah, I think we are in the same boat. So the wolves come, and Princess Mononoke is like, this fucking guy helped me. I don't really know why. I don't know what his deal is. And oh yeah. So this part I thought was I was like, what? She pulls his sword and she puts it to his throat, and she's like, I should kill you. And she's like, you didn't let me kill Lady Eboshi. I would have done it, and you took that from me. And he's just like, you're beautiful, and it just like throws her for a loop for some reason. It's like just cut his fucking head off, like.
No, the part that got me is right when that happens. Like, he passes out and falls off. You're cool.
No, this is the part,
and then this one wolf just comes up, and like, as soon as he hits the ground and he's not conscious, just grabs him by the head and goes.
That part got me.
It's so funny.
That part got me. I've even put in the notes as like, he just grabbed him by the head, LOL. But then the next part really fucking got me, is they're like kind of talking about what they're going to do with them. And just these creepy little apes appear, and they're like, let us eat the human. And they're like, what?
Yes.
She's like, what are you talking about? You can't eat him. And they're like, we will gain his power if we eat him, and we will be able to kill the humans. And she's just like, that's not how it works, you weird little monkey. Like, go away. And
he goes, and he's like, you wolves do nothing but watch. You just watch us die. You don't help at all. And it's like, oh geez, like, he actually has a point, but it's also like really funny that, it's like, for clarity, these are like kind of a sister tribe of god animals, where they're just like, they're intelligent beings, and they can have speech, and they communicate. And it's funny because they're just like, ooh, must eat person to kill. It's so funny to me.
And what's sad is they just go and plant trees where the trees have been removed on this mountainside for the mining, and they just are constantly getting fucking blasted by these guns, and they're just trying to plant trees. So all day and all night, they're just trying to sneak out onto this fucking cliff face and plant a tree. So they're just fed up. They're just fed up with it. They're like, they won't even let us plant our fucking trees. Let us eat them. We'll see if that works. And like, I can't blame them.
No.
But they're like, no, fuck off. And the wolf, one of the wolves is like, I'm going to eat you, you little shithead. And all the apes are like, we'll get you one day. And they all just run away.
Well, it's funny. He makes a comment, though, because like, well, don't worry. We have Princess Mononoke is like, don't worry. We have the deer god. We have the forest spirit on our side. He'll help us. And they say, he doesn't do shit. Doesn't help at all. He just sits around.
They're just so fucking fed up. And the funny thing is, it's like these giant wolves and these giant boars, and just, they have so much power and all this stuff. And the poor little apes have nothing. They're just trying to plant trees, and they're just so fed up with it. They're like, nobody does anything for us. We gotta rise. This is just a prequel to Planet of the Apes. So from here, she takes him to the clearing where the spirit of the forest is. Is that right?
Yeah, and we do learn through their brief interaction with the wolves that her real name is San. It is she actually has a given name by her family of wolves here, being San, San. So
yeah, and she clearly feels indebted to Ashitaka, or she at least seems to respect him and feel like he's a good guy, because she nurses him back to health. She takes him to the island kind of in the middle of this clearing in this lake, and the spirit of the forest comes, and he's kind of, I'm gonna be honest, spirit of the forest is kind of derpy.
I wanted to hear your reaction to it, because he's got like a human face, yeah. But it's like, imagine like Darth Maul's face on a giant deer.
Yeah, and he just has this dopey ass grin all the time. He's just like, "Hey man, I'm just chill." He really has big Tom Bombadil energy, where he's just so powerful and all this stuff that he's just over it. He's like, "I just want to hang out in my little forest and maybe get a little high. Like that's all I want to do. Fuck all this other noise." And also she takes the saddle and the reins and all this stuff off of his elk, and she's like, "You're free. Like you can go. You don't have to put up with his ass anymore."
And he just stays next to him.
Yeah, he's like, "No, that's my boy. What are you talking about?" But the spirit of the forest saves him. He wakes up and he's weak, and she. This is another part that is like, you didn't have to do this to me. She has like just some kind of meat, or like, and it looks really tough, and
it's
she
like
rips
jerky,
yeah, it's like a jerky or something. She rips part of it off and like puts it in his mouth, and she's just like, "Eat this. You need your strength." And he tries to chew it and he can't. And I was just like, "Don't baby bird it. Don't baby bird it." And she fucking baby birds it. Yeah. She like chews it up for him and spits in his mouth, and it was just like, damn. I at that point I'd have been like, "Sorry, man. Looks like you're gonna die. I thought the spirit of the forest would help, but he doesn't give a fuck either."
Spirit of the forest don't do shit. The apes are right.
Yeah. I'm gonna go join the apes now. I'm gonna let them eat you. But no, she is a great caretaker. She baby birds it.
An important thing that happens too in this scene is where we see Jigo, and he has a couple of guys with him. A couple guys that are dressed like bears hunting in the background. And so they actually, during the night, see this like. I'll let you take it from here, but they see something during the night where it's like, "Oh shit, that's what we're looking for."
Yeah, what is it? The night spirit? Is that what they? The night walker.
Night walker, night spirit. Yeah.
Yeah, they see it's just this massive fucking ethereal Godzilla monster looking thing that just walks around the forest. And once again, this is the spirit of the forest, and once again he's just kind of doing his own thing. He's like, "I love being made of stars and walking through my forest."
Yeah,
this dude's just fucking loving his life.
And Jigo actually gets some explanation too. He's like, "So this is the Night Walker, boys. During the day he'll turn back into the deer, but he turns into this at night. So keep an eye on him. Remember that, because it's important for us." And so it kind of prefaces that Jigo is pretty explicitly hunting the deer god. So it paints again Jigo as like he had an ulterior motive the whole time. Like this is actually what he's out to do right now.
he sees, like, still with Jigo, and I think it's, the next morning or whatever.
Yeah.
Him and his men see all of these boars just pouring into the forest, and they see one that it's this, it's a lighter color and it's just massive. It has these huge tusks, and one of them is like, oh God, what was the name?
Okoto,
Oh, okay, yeah, thank you.
i.e. Keith David.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
can just call him Keith David from now on.
Okoto, Keith David the boar. He's like, oh shit, is that Okoto? And the other one's like, no, Okoto's been dead for hundreds of years or some shit. And and Jigo's like, no, that's fucking Okoto. I know Okoto, and that's fucking Okoto. And
And what I love here is that when he says Okoto's name, like Okoto is blind, it looks like in his eyes, and Okoto just fucking dead eye stares them in the bushes. They're like, motherfuckers, I see you. Like,
yeah, and they're instantly like, cheese it, and they just start running, like jumping from rock to rock in this river. And he's like, you fucking cowards! Like, it's funny, like he's running away, but he's like, you all are cowards. Follow me.
Yeah.
So then we see, Keith David leading his pack of Pumbas through through the forest, and they come upon the wolves and Princess Mononoke and Ashitaka. And Ashitaka is still kind of out of it. He's weak. He's just laying there, and they have this conversation. This other boar that is a smaller one and is kind of hot-headed. He wants to kill Ashitaka, doesn't he?
Yeah, so like, the wolf matriarch and the two wolf like kids and son are all there with Ashitaka hanging out, and a whole crowd of boars just comes up, and they're basically like, "Where's my boy Nago at? What the fuck did you do to my boy Nago?"
Yeah, and pretty quickly Ashitaka is just like, yeah, I didn't want to, but I had to kill that fucking guy.
Yeah, and the boar are very like, they're like, motherfucker, we should kill you. That's eye for an eye. You fucking kill one of our own. Like you killed our brother. We loved him, and you took him from us. How dare you?
Yeah.
And then the wolves are just very much like defending, like, well, it's like you kill us all the time. Like, why do you just hate us innately? And the boars are like, you probably just fucking ate Nago, and you're lying to me right now. And Ashitaka is very much like, listen, I do not bear him harm. I'm sorry. I really am sorry about that. I didn't mean to hurt him. And then Okoto comes forth and actually talks to Ashitaka, excuse me.
Yeah, and he kind of tells the story like, he turned into a demon. He was going to hurt all these people, and I just did what I had to do. I didn't want to do it, but it is what it is. And Keith David's like, you know what? I believe you. But he's like, but if I see you again, I'm still going to fucking kill you. So get out of Dodge. Yeah. This isn't your fight. And he tells them, like, yeah, I'm going to lead. This is going to be our final stand. We're going to charge the humans. We're going to take the fight to them. And the big wolf, the matriarch, is like, they're going to build a trap. This is what they want. They want to bait you into this. And they want one big final, showdown because they have, superior firepower. They have a better position. They want to wipe you out. And he's just like, yeah, I know that. But they're going to remember us at least. Like, we're going to have a final glorious charge, and the humans are going to remember.
Yeah.
Remember
us as we are, not what they're going to make us become.
Yeah.
And it's like, and he even says, like, look at us. We're getting smaller. Our numbers are going thinner, and we're just not doing well like we used to.
Yeah.
Like, they're hurting us, and we're suffering. Like, and it's so sad. I'm like, oh man, Okoto, I feel so bad for you, Keith David.
Yeah,
like,
and he kind of says something to the effect of like, we're getting stupider. Soon we are just going to be mindless, and then they can do whatever. And he's like, so before that, we're going to take the fight to them, and even if we lose, we die, as we are and what we are, and for something, instead of just slowly being hunted, one by one.
And it's just like the fucking the fucking archetypal debate of like, God, do you die for what you believe in or live to change another day? And it's like, that's literally the argument they're having. And it's such an interesting way to have that argument in this like animal like kingdom, literal like families and humanity. I think that's such a really interesting way to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And once again, there are these, leaders of these groups who are, fighting each other and gonna, wage war against each other. And I kind of like all of them, and I understand where they're all coming from. So yeah, like even once again, he is, obviously choosing to go into a battle that he doesn't think he can win, but he's like, this is, what I think is best for my people, instead of just slowly, becoming animals, we're going to have one glorious final charge. And it's like, damn, I don't want you to do that, but I understand why you feel that way,
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting too because this conversation happens, and as soon as it ends, they all kind of disperse, and it just leaves like Ashitaka and San and Yakul is just hanging out with them, and then she looks over, she's like, "Motherfucker, the spirit, the deer god was just sitting here the whole time, like he didn't fucking interject at all. He's just over there, like he is just kind of hanging out, isn't he?" And it's like, well, I mean, he could still save lives. He could still make a change, and he has his part to play yet still maybe. So we'll see what happens. But she's just kind of like, huh, yeah, right there he is over there. So it's interesting that they were all just so like, it's like they were talking about him. He was right in front of them, and it's like he was just like, I'm just here, whatever, man.
he just looks over. He's like, you talking about me?
He just got a blunt in his little Darth Maul face. He's like, what you saying?
Yeah, he just has those stupid fucking sunglasses on. But so if I remember correctly, the next scene is, Ashitaka is kind of getting his strength back. He was asleep in this cave with San, and he walks out and, looks around, and the, big matriarch wolf is, has a conversation with her, and she's just kind of like, laying everything out for him. And she says, San is my daughter, but she's not like you. I know that you think you can, live your life with her and you want this future with her, but it's not going to happen because she's a wolf. Even though, physically she is, she's obviously a human, but she is my daughter and she is a wolf and she is going to fight for this and she's going to die for this. And she tells the story of how, she came upon these two parents with their little baby in the woods, and they, were scared and they ran away, but they like threw their baby at her. And she's like, they expected me to eat her and, to be a monster, but I didn't. Like, I raised her. And,
Yeah.
So that is what she is now. She is one of us. She's not one of you anymore because you all gave up on her. And, so I thought that was kind of cool, like, because, they kept referring to her as, the daughter and everything. And I was like, are they going to explain that? Or is this just, or is she just a furry who, like, fully committed? And she's like, you know what? I am a wolf.
This is my choice.
Yeah, she like proved herself to the wolves, and they're like, you know what? She is a wolf. Come on. But, so, and she's also, like, everybody's just telling Ashitaka to fuck off. She's like, hey,
Yeah.
once sunup happens, you need to get the fuck out of this forest or I'm gonna kill you. And he's like, okay.
Yeah.
So he goes back to sleep, and then he wakes up and everybody's gone. And one of the...
Something I want to mention, sorry to interrupt you. I love, and I was talking to my wife about this, I love how Ghibli does facial features, especially, like, they do great facial features on humans, but they do amazing, intense detail facial features and expressions for the wolf. Because, like, there's times when the matriarch wolf, Moro, is talking, and, like, she'll, like, have, like, snarls and, like, eye movements, and it's like, it's very human, but it's still anatomically a wolf, and it's such an interesting blend. And I'm like, that is so cool how they're doing this. It's so interesting to look at. Like to have an animal, like, because, like, you have, like, a lot of cartoons nowadays where it's like, or animations nowadays, I should say, where you have, like, like the wolf's mouth just moves like a human's. And it's like blah 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 blah. It's like
Yeah.
the lips will match English or whatever source media language movements of the mouth. But this is such an interesting. It's that kind of like almost like they're not talking with their mouths. It's kind of just like you can hear them what they're saying,
Yeah.
But I think it does it really well.
Yeah, they're really expressive, and that is a really interesting point because the classic example is Lion King, where they were very cartoony and did not really even look like these animals, in the name of being expressive, and then they redid that,
of course,
with the very realistic looking CGI animals, and it just looks so uninteresting because it's just kind of like this unexpressive lion that's like, oh, my dad died, and it just not much comes.
They went
across.
too far in the other direction.
Yeah, but this is a really good blend where, like you said, it is really using the features of a wolf, but in ways that are really kind of getting a lot of emotion through in ways that maybe their face doesn't really move like that, but it still looks realistic.
Plus, the voice actors did a great job with all the wolves here too.
Yeah, no, the voice talent is just so good. But yeah, so he is led, after he wakes up, one of the smaller wolves leads him back towards Irontown, and he's like, hey, give this to San, and he throws the crystal dagger that his sister gave him to the wolf, and the wolf just kind of catches it and is like, okay, man, and just fucks right off.
Peace.
Yeah.
Later.
they're like, man, I don't really care what you have with my sister. I don't want to be involved in this. Just y'all do your thing. So it becomes very apparent that the humans are setting a trap for the boars. They have, kind of this hill with a, cliff face to their back, and they're burning all of this stuff to cover, basically so that the animals can't use their sense of smell, because that's obviously like a big advantage that they have.
Correct.
So they're, setting a trap. That wolf goes and, the mother and San and everybody is up on this hill, kind of hidden, looking down, and San is talking to the mother wolf and is like, oh my god, they're setting a trap and all this stuff, and the mother wolf is like, yeah, but Keith David's in charge into it. He doesn't give a shit. Like, this is what he wants, and he's not gonna think twice. And San's like, well, I have to try. I have to go and I have to tell the boars that they need to turn around. They can't just go into this. And
right.
She's like, hey, if that's what you gotta do, it's what you gotta do. Do your thing. Ashitaka is at this point going back towards Irontown, and if I remember correctly, this other like local lord who has been trying to get in on this iron action is attacking Irontown. Is that right?
I think it might even, we glossed over that earlier, but I think it might even be one of the shoguns. Is actually like, listen, like you didn't play ball. I wanted half the iron. You ain't giving it to me. But then the emperor has given Jigo an order to kill the deer god. And so
because
it's kind of a bit of like a subversion happening here from the government as well. The government's kind of trying to get more resource out of Irontown, and she's just kind of like, well, no, I can't do that. And then he's telling Jigo at the same time, all right, go over there and kill that forest god near her. Help her finish that job so she can help me out with this shit.
Yeah, because he's convinced that if he has the head, it will grant him eternal life.
Which kind of, hey, hey, listen, man, if that's what you feel, whatever.
Yeah.
More power to you.
Yeah. So kind of this stuff's going on. He is riding towards Irontown, and he sees that, they're kind of laying siege to it. They're attacking the walls, and some of the, samurai and stuff see him, and once again they're chasing him. And the women that are defending the walls of Irontown tell him, like, hey, you need to tell the men that we're being attacked. They're, basically they're all laying this trap for the boars. While they're away, the women are
Right.
a sneak attack has happened, and
Because like Lady Eboshi and Jigo have kind of joined forces and realized, well, if you want the Emperor dead, or if you want the Emperor to have the head of the spirit, and I want to get rid of the spirit so I can keep my people safe and also get the Emperor off my back, well then how about we work together on this? And so
yeah,
basically they all kind of form like this like unified front against the Boers, and all of the men of the town leave all the women of the town. And then the shogun's like, or then the local lord's like, you know what? Hey, while they're out doing the work we asked them to do, let's just take their stuff. And so then it's like,
yeah.
fuck it, let's go get it.
And the women kind of say something. They're like, yeah, they thought they were just gonna roll in here, but they didn't know they had to fuck with us. So they're just like laying the fucking lead to them. And they're just like, you know what, motherfucker, try and take these walls. Like, it's not gonna happen. So they tell him, like, hey, tell Lady Eboshi and all the men that we've been attacked. They need to get here and make sure that we can hold Irontown, because this is what we've been working for. This is what we've been building.
Right. And for Ashitaka, it's a win-win, because not only will it stop Lady Eboshi from hunting the deer god and Jigo from killing him, but it'll bring everyone back to stop the bloodshed at home, while also saving the deer god and the people of the forest and the boars. So it's like, Ashitaka's like, shit, this is how I solve this. I gotta get there in time and stop this from even starting.
Yeah, so he is being chased by these samurai of the attacking force, because, they know, like, oh shit, he can't let the others know, if we get wedged between an army and these walls, we're fucked. So they are chasing him, and it's, there's like big kind of action scene, and fucking the elk gets shot in the leg, and I was just like, you sons of bitches.
No.
I was like, if you
I
make
know.
me watch this,
Cool.
I was like, if you make me watch Yakul die, I swear to God, I'm gonna I'm gonna be so upset.
I know it.
So this happens, and then once again, he's just like, y'all motherfuckers need to turn around and go, and they do not. So he does crazy decapitation shit with his arm. And next, the next scene is he comes across the what's left of the battle. Is that right?
Yeah, basically the first kind of, the battle is kind of, so it show, does it even show the battle at this point? I can't remember.
We see a little.
It shows it later. That's right. It flashes back to it.
Yeah.
God, yeah, he comes up on this like pile of boars, and then he's like, "Oh God, there's just boars strewn about, and they're dead." Oh, it's so fucking sad.
Yeah, there's just boars everywhere. There are rows of dead men. And that's one thing that I did like about this movie, and I thought it did well. Like, not only did it show, like, oh, okay, there's just these people who, like, one isn't good and one isn't evil. They have different goals that are inherently against one another. And that's led to this conflict. There's no glory in it. There's no, honor, nothing like that. It's just gore, and it's just death, and it's just loss.
It's all loss. It's so sad.
Yeah, so he, comes across some of the men of the town that he had met, and they're the ones who were very much like, hey, please, we don't want to hurt you. Like, you seem like such a good guy. You've helped us. These guys who seem to really respect him a lot. And they're like, hey, it's been an awful morning. I've been burying my friends. Then he, once again, he kind of has this connection with the gods and stuff. So he realizes that one of the wolves is trapped under the corpse of a boar. So he goes over this. I mean, it's just like a mound of fucking boars. He goes over that and is lifting the boar, and the wolf is trying to get out. And the captain of the guard comes over, and he sees this, and he's like, you're one of them. You've been helping them this whole time. And he's getting his, he has like a blowgun with these poison darts, and he's shooting at him. And the men are like, no, fuck this. He's been just a good dude that, was helping.
So they just mutiny the fucking Jingos like men.
Yeah, they just beat the shit out of him. And they go and they help him lift the boar, because he's also at this point getting crushed by it. they're like, yeah, Lady Eboshi went that way with Jigo and all of his guys, and we're gonna go back to Irontown. We're gonna help the women, but you need to tell Lady Eboshi because we need her leadership. Like, she needs to know about this. So
Sure.
he is going that way, and at some point, I don't remember exactly when it happens, but we get the kind of the flashback to the battle where, oh no, I think it is actually right around this time when the men are telling him,
Yeah.
they're like,
Yeah.
he's like, well, what happened here? And one of them's like, I was on the front lines, I saw everything. And he's like, they didn't tell us that we were standing on landmines, and that when the boars got to us and we thought we were going to fight, that the landmines were just going to fucking explode, and that we were going to lose. The front lines were
Yeah.
bait. They didn't care.
Yeah, and it shows like literally like a swarm of boars, like literally just like the ghosts from fucking Return of the King, like it's just like going through the landscape up and over like the fucking hills, like a wave of boars, and they're like knocking out encampments of soldiers, and they get to this like front line like that. And it shows like explosions, and the boars go flying up into the air and like falling off of cliffs, and it's terrible.
Yeah, and
It's awful to watch. It's detailed art too. It's like,
yeah,
fuck, man.
and not only like it also shows that not only were they not told about these landmines, but behind them, the rock wall behind them, there are guys that come up on top of that and start kicking grenades down. And so they were, I
Yeah.
mean, they were just pawns, and they see this, they're like, oh my God, we were slaughtered in the name of killing these boar.
And I think one of them even realizes that he's like, they've been using Lady Eboshi this whole time against her will to do their dirty work. Like, they're just using her like, they know her weaknesses and her background. They're using her like motive to help to get their own goals done. And it's like, that's fucked
Yeah.
up, guys. Look how much pain you're causing on everyone's side. Like, it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's very much like, how dare they fucking double cross us as a government to like put us in this situation. That's just terrible.
Yeah, Jigo and his men
yeah.
seem just like really slimy. Like they just.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so Ashitaka is running, trying to catch up with Lady Eboshi and all of these men who are going to hunt the deer god. And then it shows San, who is with Keith David Bohr, and he is like, I need to.
He is fucked up, by
Yeah,
the way.
yeah, he's really fucked up. He's trying to like drag himself, and he's like, I need to get to the deer god. He's gonna make me better. He's gonna raise my army from the dead, and we're gonna take revenge. And she's trying to help him get there, and he starts.
He's
to,
like coughing up blood
Yeah,
and
it's
like
just
falling
like-
over.
It's not just like he coughs and there's some blood. It's like just fucking geysers of blood. He starts to like he starts to really lose it. He starts to turn into a demon, and we see these like black kind of tendril worm things start to appear all over him. And
Yes.
around that time, all of these like creepy fucking boar skins start to like appear.
God.
And he's like,
Yeah, it is cuts because Okoto's blind, and it kind of cuts
Yeah.
behind him, and he's like, "Oh, I smell them. They're here. My fallen brethren back from the dead." And
Yeah.
and like you said, it's just Jigo's men in their fucking in his like family's skins, and it's like, Jesus God.
yeah,
Like, that's fucked up, guys. Like, it's just getting intense. Like, it's honestly, it's portrayed very harrowingly.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's showing these like skins moving like almost like in an animal like motion, even of themselves. And it's like, oh God,
Yeah,
like, but it's just people inside with like robes on, of course. But oh my God.
Yeah. So it's pretty terrible. And San is telling him like, no, these aren't your fallen comrades. Like they've skinned them. They're using them. They're using you. And he's like, no. He refuses to believe it. He's like, no. These are my fallen comrades. We're gonna go to the deer god and all this stuff. And he's becoming this demon. And the tendrils are like grabbing her, and she's trying to like wipe them away, and she's like, no, don't do this, like don't turn into a demon, don't let your rage and hate and all this stuff take control of you. And one of the guys wearing the boar skin has a sling, and he just gets her right in the back of the head with a rock. So she kind of falls into Keith David, and like all the tendrils start consuming her. And she starts freaking, like she comes to and she's freaking out. She's like, "Oh my god, I don't want to be a demon," and she's trying to get away.
Yep. It's fucked up, and oh god, it's really shitty.
Yeah.
And I think it's at this point it cuts to Ashitaka when he actually catches up to Eboshi.
Yeah, and he tells the wolf to go on. He's like, you go on, you catch up with, San and your people, and he tells Lady Eboshi what's going on, and he's like, your people need you in Irontown, and she's just like, they don't need me. Like the women can hold it. They're competent. They don't need me. They are strong and they can do it themselves. And she's like, I'm gonna push forward with Jigo and his men. We're gonna kill this fucking spirit of the forest. And from there, Ashitaka does continue to run towards the clearing where the spirit of the forest lives and all this stuff. And when he gets there, the matriarch wolf is lying half in the pond, and she's really fucked up, and she's dying. And she says something to the effect of, like, she's like, "Oh, I've been conserving the last of my strength to kill Lady Eboshi." So, like, even in death, she's like, "I am gonna, complete my mission,
get my vengeance." Yeah, and I think it's at this point, it's just they're sitting there talking, and just coincidentally, Akoto just comes up from the woods behind them, and he's just there as well. So literally, they're all there again. And I think at this point it shows that Lady Eboshi's gotten here as well. She's kind of getting in position to find the forest god and take it out. With Jigo.
Yeah, and the matriarch,
and everyone's just kind of like waiting around.
Yeah, the matriarch wolf is like tries to grab. She says something to Ashitaka. She's like, "Do you think you can save the woman you love?" And she, helps him get San out of this, fucked up demon worm stuff. And
she basically just like uses her last bit of, I think she even says, I know she says in the Japanese version, she's like, to think I sat here with my last bit of strength for her ass, but my daughter needs me. What the fuck am I thinking? And so she just gets up and like puts her face right into Keith David's like fucking face and like rips San out finally.
Yeah.
And it's very visceral.
Yeah, and like they kind of go flying into the water. About this time, the the fucking deer god is like, it's like, "Hey guys, what's going on over here? Is there stuff happening?" And he starts like walking across the water. He walks on top of it, and Ashitaka looks up, and it's just walking towards him, and it's just looking at him with its stupid Darth Maul face. It's like, "Hey man, how you been?" And he looks over and he sees Lady Eboshi just fucking posted up in her sniper's nest, and he's like, "No, don't do it," like, and she just fucking 360 no scopes him, and just like straight through the fucking head, and he starts to fall, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, she did it, she fucking killed him." And he just kind of like staggers a little bit, and then he's like, "Oh, what was that? I got a little bit of a headache for a second there."
Hey, little Cola, let me come on over there and see how you're doing.
And he just fucking walks off this hole in his head. It means nothing to him. And so he goes over there, and he sees the matriarch wolf is dying, and Keith David is, becoming a demon. And he's like, he doesn't say anything, but it very much seems that he's like, "Hey, it's your all's time. Like, it's time to just end things while in this pain.
Yeah, and it looks to me as well that Kodo kind of sees him face to face finally. He's actually like in awe, like, oh, this is it. I've been waiting so long for this. And it's kind of sweet in a way where he's like, oh, finally I can meet my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, he gives him like a little like nudge on the snout, and that kind of just like you said, he very peacefully passes away, which is nice to see.
Yeah, and it very much feels like a kindness because it's like, the matriarch wolf is like dying of her wounds, and he is being consumed by all this terrible shit. And it seems like he's just like, hey, we can just rest. We don't need to do all this, guys. So they die, and Jigo is like, what the fuck? Like, why is it killing its friends? And right about this time, it turns to night, and he's like, well, I'm going to turn into the fucking Night Walker. It was fun hanging out with you all for a little bit. And he, his neck starts to extend, and parts of him start to turn into this, like, the ethereal stuff we were talking about that looks like it's made of stars.
Again, I want to compliment Ghibli here. It's like the animation here is like, why? It's like it's the most like otherworldly, like kind of weird neck extension thing. I'm like, this still looks so cool looking. It shouldn't look this cool. This shouldn't make physical sense what I'm looking at.
Yeah, and so as this is happening, Lady Eboshi is like, you know how you kill a god, don't you? And they're like, what do you mean? She's like, you just have to show it that you don't fear it. And she runs out into the clearing and once again just shoots it through the fucking neck as it's, kind of transforming. And the head flies off.
Yeah.
And Jigo is like, oh shit, it's our chance. So he runs out with these guys, and they have this special, like, iron box that they throw the head in. And all this, it just turns into this, like, fucked up black goo starts coming out of its neck. And everything it touches dies. So, like, every bit of the forest just starts to die. Everyone that it touches just falls over dead. And it just is expanding and expanding and expanding. It's just consuming everything. And even as this is happening, Jigo is still just like, well, we got to get the fuck out of town. So he's just fucking right off.
So it's something that's really fun. Like it's not funny, but it's something that's kind of full circle. What happens here too is some of the goop lands on Moro, the matriarch wolf, and she kind of reawakens her a little bit. And she's like not quite dead before that happens, but I don't know if it hits her per se. But basically, she has a little bit of life left in her, and she kind of uses that last bit of life, like she said, to just kind of just being ahead at that point. Moro takes her head and just jumps up and bites off Eboshi's arm for full circle vengeance, and knocks her out of the fight, so to speak.
Yeah, so it's coming to a head where just like everyone is dying. Ashitaka is able to save San and take her across the water to the like this island where the deer god had lived, and he's telling her, he's like, look, we got to go and get that head. He needs his head back, and this will stop. And she's like, what are you talking about? It's over.
And it's important to note she's very much like, how fucking dare you like save because he revived the Boshi. He was the one who kind of saved her from dying there.
Yeah.
And she's like, how dare you? She was a monster to me and all these people. And he's like, but he's basically like, listen, I don't want anybody to be in pain. It doesn't matter who the fuck it is, right? And it's like she's very like, she's kind of cathartic about it. She's just very frustrated, and that's understandably frustration.
Yeah. And he just says, like, look, she lost her arm. The vengeance is done. He's like, just let it rest. Like, everyone's hurt enough. What's the point of doing more of this? And
which is a good message.
And she's like, it's over. We lost. Everything's gonna die. And he's like, I'm alive. You're alive. Nothing's over. And there's the whole action scene where this goo is spreading and all these people are dying and all these animals are dying. Just everything's dying. And I'm pretty sure we get one last shot of the apes, and they're just like, we told you.
Yeah. They stop and run through the woods, and San's basically just like, where are you guys going? And he goes, oh, dear God, Dad, look what you do. You never helped. We were right. And they're just like, later, peace.
The apes are like
And
everybody's disappointed parents, you know? They're just popping in all the time, like, why do you never call?
oh my God. But yeah, and something I want to note here too. I just have one note. It just says Ghibli does goop real good. Like they do really good goop animations in all their movies. You'll see a lot of it.
It was real goopy. When I saw it, it made me think of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the Secret of the Ooze. I was just like, damn, that's some of that.
Shit.
I was like, that's some of that. In the '90s, we had the best fucking ooze.
Yeah, now it's all this CGI bullshit, and I'm just like, fuck, I want some goop. Give me some goop. Goop Award 2024.
Bring back the fucking Nickelodeon slime bucket.
Oh, hell yeah.
The '90s were a very slime-centric decade.
I miss it. I want slime in all my media.
Even even like sludge metal, was a thing in the late '90s, early 2000s. Yeah, everything was just slime and sludge and goop.
Fucking bygone eras.
Yeah, look at what they've taken from us. But anyway, so the apes are being just absolute madmen. The goop is spreading. They have the big kind of action chase sequence where Jigo is just like dodging. It's like the most harrowing game of dodgeball, and he's like, "No, I need to keep this fucking head for the Emperor." And
they have the head on like a stretcher. There's 4 of his men, like him included, are just like pulling, like ripping ass with this thing, like jumping off of trees and like dodge it. Like you said, just dodging the goop. It's fucking wild. And then it's like eventually they run into Ashitaka and San.
Yeah, but before that, there's this really great scene that I liked quite a bit where the people who are in Irontown look and see what's happening. And one of the men that's been injured and is still there, he's just like, well, we're doomed. We're fucked. Like, we're all going to die. And one of the women who's kind of been one of the main, leaders that we've seen, she's just like, no, like, this isn't over. Get in the lake. We're going to keep fighting and, until it's over. We're not going to give up. And she really kind of takes the reins and saves a lot of lives. But, Ashitaka catches up with them. Him and San catches up with Jigo, and they're like, "Hey, give us the head. Look at what you've done." And he's just like, "Never."
Yeah, because it's like I don't know. Never. I don't know if we mentioned it, but like the torso is reformed into the Godzilla torso, and it's like, where's my head? And it can't find it. It's like reaching around.
It's just fucking shooting its death goop everywhere looking for its head. And Jigo is just like, he's like, it's gonna be over, it's gonna turn into morning, and it doesn't have a head, it's gonna fucking die. And they're like, yeah, that's not the point. That's not what we're getting at here. And he's like, well, you won't fucking fight me for it. And he just starts doing these like crazy moves where he's trying to kick Ashitaka right in the face. And one of his
his boys pull out fucking switchblades. I'm like, what the fuck?
Like, they've been waiting for this shit. And San's like, I got them. You got to fight Jigo. So they're just having this, fucking fight. And one of the guys is running up the hill with the iron box. And San is able to catch him. And it's kind of a cylinder shape. So it comes tumbling down the hill, and she's like, "Oh, you gotta catch it." And Jigo, who's just an absolute unit, is like, "I got it," and just stands in the way, and he just gets his shit rocked, and just goes rolling down the hill. They go and they catch up to him, and the goop is consuming everything. Like, they're just on a rock that's like an island in the goop, and they're like, man, we gotta get it back. You're gonna die, we're all gonna die. And at this point, Jigo's like, okay, have it your way. And they, take the head out, and, basically the goop monster is like, oh, hell yeah, my head is back. And the head kind of goes back and attaches, but instead of it just turning into the deer god, it kind of just explodes and all the goop
I think
disappears.
I think it kind of looks at it. If I'm not mistaken, it kind of takes a look at the landscape and the sun rising. It's like, well, I'm not
Yeah.
back in the forest. I'm probably not going to survive out here as this big Godzilla thing. And it looks around. It's like, well, I'm made of like life. I can choose to just yeet myself into the ground and explode and fix all this.
Yeah,
And so that's what it does.
yeah,
It
it's
just
kind of
says,
like
fuck it.
it's kind of like it looks and it's like, "Oh shit, I really fucked everything up. I better fix that." Um so it like explodes into just this life, like everything starts to grow again where it's nothing but dead vegetation, like all this stuff starts to sprout up and grow again, and everybody's kind of looking around, and Lady Eboshi kind of sees all this, and she's like, I did some really bad shit. And she's like, we can
Yeah.
rebuild, but we need to rebuild something better. Like we need to do
Yeah.
we need to do something else. So everybody is kind of like taking these horrors that they've seen, because it got so bad that literally fucking death goop was touching stuff and everything was dying. And they're like, okay, maybe we shouldn't do this shit anymore. And like
Yeah.
so much shit was
You
lost that
know, it's like you said, it's a really beautiful, like, again, they do that shit again where they hit you with that musical motif, and this is really beautiful, like, piano music and like these really pretty watercolors.
Yeah. And it did I liked this where, San and Ashitaka are talking to each other, and San just kind of tells them like,
Because they're okay at the end of it.
yeah, they're okay, and she's like, look, you mean the world to me, but we can't even live together. Like we are just not, like, fundamentally we are just not the same kind of person, or just like kind of thing. And
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, no, I get that. And he's like, well, I'll go to Irontown. I'll help them rebuild. And he's like, I know you'll go into the forest and you'll, rebuild with the wolves and everything. And he's like, but we'll still see each other. So like, I thought that was
Yeah.
nice, because it was kind of building this romance that it wasn't
Yeah.
even a romance as much as it was just like mutual respect. In this,
Exactly.
like, horrific violence, even if they weren't really on the same side, it was just kind of this relationship that didn't. I appreciate that, because I was expecting it to be kind of just like really sticky sweet, like, and they lived happily
Star Wars.
yeah. And it's like, oh, they're gonna live happily ever after, and it's like, you can't, like, after everything that's happened, you can't really have. You can have a hopeful ending, but you can't really have like a super
Yeah.
happy ending. You know what I mean? So I really
I
appreciated
think
that.
it's very yeah, it's very mindful where it's like it's very much not just like the beat of the head, like, didn't you look at the environment? Isn't the it's like, yeah, yes, the largely the story is about environmental, rights and like animal rights and like treating each other with respect and the world with respect, but it's also treating each other and like how we interact as groups with respect and how we handle those relationships and conflicts. Because at the end of the day, like, humans, whether it's a large violent scale or just a small personal scale, we're going to have conflicts, and like we need to be able to learn how to navigate those things a little bit better. And like you said, like, okay, maybe mining iron isn't the best way to do resource funding. Maybe there's a better thing we could be doing that's not so harmful on the environment, which I didn't mean for this to be such a piggyback off last week's episode, because that was a major theme there too. So kind of funny how that worked out with the panopticon stuff in this. It's like the theming is again on the same page with that. I think, at least, where it's very much like, we can look at this moving forward and understand, like, look what we've done. Let's be better every day.
Yeah, and one thing I really liked about this, and I thought it did really well, and I think is something that maybe they were trying to show in Panopticon in Kentucky, is that all this stuff is violence. It obviously, with the album Kentucky, it talks about these big battles and like these big acts of mass violence, but that's not it. there's violence against the land because you do this stuff that hurts the environment. You've hurt all these people, you've hurt all these animals, you've hurt the actual land itself, and
Yeah.
and I thought that this did a really good job of showing like, oh, okay, all of this is violence, all of this is building towards the same thing, no matter what scale it's on or what it is hurting, it is all the same thing. And I thought that was done
Yeah.
really well in a way that didn't, because it's easy to be like, oh, okay, we should protect the environment, but it's harder to have that message of just like, this is all of the same stuff, this is all just violence, and that's why we shouldn't do it.
Yeah, and like you said, I think it's like it did such a good job, like you mentioned before, where everyone here, all the leaders like you like it isn't. It could have very easily said, "Look at the violent, evil boar race." And it's like, well, that's not. That would have been very boring. It would have been very dumb in my eyes. Like they're just evil. It's like, well, no, they're not. They have they're intelligent. They have family and loved ones. Like they're
Yeah.
important things in this world, and yet they're relegated because of people's decisions with their backgrounds that they're not. And it's fucking terrifying, and it's sad no matter who's doing it. That's, like you said, that's the important thing to say, is like, it's fucking terrible no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think it does that in such a nice way where it kind of is like, because again, like, this is a Ghibli movie that's a little bit more heavy in theming. It does it in a way that it can portray it to you with that kind of hopeful attitude, like, but look what we can do. We can have resolution, and we can move forward. Like, and we can all put our pride, even though Lady Eboshi and a lot of her decision makings were for the people she loved and cared about, she acknowledged she did some bad shit. And moving forward, she's like, I'm not going to do that bad shit anymore, because I was never happy with it. It was a means to an end, but maybe now this is when we move forward.
Yeah. No, I definitely thought that, there were a lot of really interesting characters. I liked it. I thought it was really good. I thought that there was a lot to like, both in how it did character and just the art itself and the animation. I thought that there was a lot to like. I thought it was pretty damn good.
Hell yeah, I'm really happy you feel that way, man. Thank you for watching it.
Yeah, no, it was a blast. Like I said, my one kind of complaint, and like I said, I think this is probably just some genre tropes, is like I was saying earlier, where Hashitaka is this kind of telling everybody like, hey, don't be violent, don't do any of this stuff. And then he turns around and he's like, I'm going to blow this fucking guy's head off. And like, I get that it's justified, but still, like, it's like, that kind of lessens the impact for me.
And I get that, though.
But
I get that. You can't be a true pacifist and then do it and then go, oh well.
Yeah.
I think for me, the only thing I could have done better in that regard is give him another like scene of him being remorseful or having some trauma from that.
Or even, but like, yeah, even if he said to himself, he was like, oh, that stuff I did was in self-defense. Everyone here could make that same argument. The boars could make that argument. The wolves could make that argument. The people could make that argument. And I'm sure you
verbalize that, not just imply it.
Yeah, because I felt like it just didn't examine his violence in the same way. And like I said, obviously, I'm not saying like he should have let them kill him.
Yeah.
But I just, I thought that was kind of a missed opportunity. But overall, I liked it quite a bit. Like I said, the way that it kind of handled these heavy themes, I thought it did really well.
And it's one of those things where I really think this is. I'll be honest. This is probably my favorite Ghibli film. This one or Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Those were both fan-fucking-tastic movies, in my opinion. We will be covering that one eventually. Not anytime soon, probably, but eventually. But, yeah, man. So, with that in mind, like, there are other Ghibli films, like, just to give you a heads up if we ever do those, which we probably will, like Spirited Away, where there's still some, like, nice themes there, but they're really more so, like, personal growth things and like personal experience things, as opposed to like overarching serious things like war or the environment.
Mm-hmm.
There other movies do touch on that, but I'm curious to see how you handle those as well, and what your opinion is on those as well, because it's a different vibe for sure. It's different in the sense where it's like, are we examining family dynamics, versus, environmental, tragedy. So it's like, I want to see how that goes over with you eventually, because I definitely think there's still a lot to love. And I think I think the way you consume it, it's definitely. I don't want you going into those movies expecting the same weight, because it's not going to
Yeah.
be the same weight. I can tell you that now.
Yeah, no, you know me. You know that if it's something that's just the most makes you ponder the most horrendous shit that could ever happen, I'm just like, oh hell yeah.
All right, so I'll go ahead and just scratch those off my list. You'll hate them.
No. I'm sure I'll like them, but no,
Just
I
kidding.
I did. I really, I thought this one was really good. It definitely. I went in with not a ton of expectations, but I did expect it to be a lot more kind of cutesy. You know what I mean? Whereas it was just
Sure.
this heavy contemplation on the nature of violence. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
I expected it to be a much more straightforward kind of, because somebody had mentioned to me that it was an environmental kind of thing. So I did expect it to be a little
Yeah.
bit more straightforward, like we shouldn't be mean to the earth, you know what I mean? But instead it was just like, this is war and
Meekus.
this
We
is
shouldn't.
yeah,
We shouldn't be so mean.
meek. Brent, I walked outside and I saw someone threw a bottle down. We need to go to war with them and kill all the pigs.
Hansel thinks he's the forest god, but he's just an ape god. Anyway,
The tree
so yeah,
spirits are so
man.
hot right now. Oh, that reminds me. The ending,
Kodama, so hot right now.
the ending of the movie is like all of this green
Yes.
is growing everywhere, and one of the tree spirits just appears and does his little head click, and then the movie ends. I was like, oh fuck yeah, the tree spirits are back, baby.
Hell, yeah, I fucking love them. As far as Ghibli cute small things go, I think they're really high up there for me. They do that shit a lot. Man, it's cute as fuck. Um, but yeah, man, that was really fun. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. We will have more Ghibli eventually. Not sure exactly when, but it will be coming. So without all being said, what do you have for me? Or I guess before we say that, do you have any other questions? Is there anything else on this one you want to go over?
No, I feel like we covered a lot. Like I said, I enjoyed it, so thanks for recommending that. As far
Absolutely. So,
as far as what we have for next week,
all right.
I had given you an option. I don't know if you remember, but I gave you an option of a few different things, and
Yes.
you picked, and I thought that was a lot of fun. So I'm going to give you two options that you can kind of pick off of, and if you go with one of the options, there's going to be even more options. So
Oh.
there, option number one, I don't know if you remember this, but a while back, as in probably a few years ago, I had mentioned actually it was kind of a prototype for this. I was like, hey, we should pick a few albums for each other and that like explain our music taste. And you have to listen to my albums and I have to listen to your albums. So it's kind of funny that we ended up doing this. But anyway, and I had told you I was like, yeah, there are three albums I'd want you to hear that I think really kind of are fundamental to my taste in music. So I can either give you one of those albums, or
Okay.
and like I said, if you pick that one, there will be more options. Or, hear me out, you could just learn about Guar.
You know what? Let's learn about Guar. I can't turn that down. I've been hearing. I know very little about Guar aside from what I've learned from you in Osmosis, and I know you fucking love Guar.
Man, I fucking love Guar. Before we even get into this, I will give you the advice that one of the guys from Guar gives everyone that goes to their show, which is keep an open mind, because you're probably going to see some shit that offends you. So
Okay.
so know that their goal is to just be very fucking offensive. But I think they do it from like a good place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, so keep an open mind on this. But no, there's a documentary I really like called This Is Guar. We can talk off
Okay.
mic about how you can have access to that, but it's this really cool documentary that's all about Guar and talks to some of the people that have been involved with the band and stuff like that.
Well, hell yeah! No, I'm excited because you have this. I know this is one of your favorite bands, and like I know from what you've told me, they seem like really chill dudes, and really just like fun, and I just excited to be part of the scene they're in, and yeah, I'm really excited to see this because I've only heard the legends.
Oh, dude, it's fucking wild. I fucking love Guar so much. It's so fucking stupid. But yeah. So this is Guar. It's a great time. I was thinking, I was like, oh, what Guar album could I make Tiberi listen to? And I think this is a really good overview. I might maybe send over a little playlist so you can get some of the essential Guar out of the way. But it'll mostly be the documentary.
Okay, that sounds like a plan to me.
Okay. Well, thank you for recommending the movie, and thank you for the conversation, and thank you to anyone who has listened.
Yes, absolutely. As we say in the intro, we're not experts. We're just two friends going through this shit. Because, it's funny, on the side, like I said, we've been friends for 15 years. This shit is like, I let me ask you this, Matt. Would you ever have consumed this otherwise? I truly want to know, like, is this something you would have gone out and watched if I hadn't asked you to?
No, I mean, this is one of those things that, like, I would not have sat down by myself and been like, oh, I want to watch a movie. Let's find something good. Even if I looked on a list and it was like, best movies on this service, watch Princess Mononoke, I would have passed it by and been like, oh, okay, maybe there's something else. It's one of those things that if somebody else had been like, hey, I really want you to watch this, like we were here, I wouldn't have been opposed to it. It's just not something I would have watched on my own.
No, sure. And basically, I just wanted to kind of just touch base and kind of explain to our viewers, like, because we really are learning a lot, I feel like, about each other's kind of like inputs and backgrounds, and it kind of tying that into our friendship a little bit too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's been super fun.
This has been a fun project. I mean, this is what, our 8th episode now, I think. So I think about to hit double digits. That's an accomplishment in of itself, I feel like. So I'm having fun with this one, Matt, and I hope we can continue to keep doing this because I'm truly enjoying it. I just wanted to say that here, and it's one of those things where it's like it's hard to put into words, but first of all, we have been so bad about recording schedules because life is life, and God forgive us for that. We've been to our viewers.
We've been doing a lot better on the recording schedule, but we've been doing a lot worse on the editing. so just a peek behind the curtain. This is our 8th episode recorded. We currently have 3 out, so I need to edit.
No, Matt, we're professionals. Don't tell them that. People could hear this and then turn us off because they don't like our scheduling.
I have people that do my editing for me. They're the little tree spirits. I've introduced capitalism to them.
Don't worry, the July episodes from March will be fine. Don't think about it. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. If you have, we really appreciate your time, and hope you guys enjoyed this discussion. Go watch Princess Mononoke if you haven't. It'll, regardless of what you think, I think it'll be just pretty to look at. So, again, be nice to each other out there. Love each other. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, funny names to call either me or my co-host, feel free to at bestfriendstosimilarinterests@gmail.com.
And remember, don't bring a gun to a boar fight.
Don't bring a boar to just don't go to the fight, guys. Stay home.
Have a good night, everybody.
See you guys.